So last class we spoke about Teves, which is the fast day, 10th of Teves, the walls of Jerusalem were laid siege to. Then we went on to speak about what's the month after Teves? Shavat, right? Shavat, we have the semi-quasi-holiday festive day called Tu B'Shvat, which is an acronym, right? Not an acronym, sorry, which is the numerical value of 15, right? The 15th of Shvat, that is the, did you hug your tree today, right? It is the birthday of the trees. Why? What happened then? That is when, after the winter rains are starting to pass, the sap now goes up the tree, and the tree is able to begin to basically blossom. We ask the question, why is Tu B'Shvat, right, in the dead of winter, right? It usually falls out between January to March, somewhere there. If we're going to celebrate the birthday of the trees, right, like do it when in April, May, June, when it's like, wow, look at this wonderful tree, right? And we answer by saying it, everyone with me? Yeah. We answer by saying the same reason we celebrate Rosh Chodesh, the new month, when the moon is a teeny, right, crescent. That's all we see, a tiny, tiny sliver in the darkness of the night. So why are we celebrating Rosh Chodesh, which is this week? Because in Judaism, it's not about the result. Now we can celebrate the birthday, of the trees. Why? Because the tree is amazing. Now we can celebrate Rosh Chodesh. Why? Because the moon is full. No, right? We celebrate when a baby is born for the potential of this child. We celebrate at a wedding, not the 50-year anniversary, right? Because of the potential of this couple. And Tu B'Shvat is about actualizing our potential. Adam, man, comes from the word Adama, which means ground, right? You don't see what's buried underneath, right? And we all have, our job is to break through that hard, cold soil and actualize ourselves, as opposed to an animal, which is a behema, which comes from the word ba-ma, what is in it, that's what it is. What you see is what you get. We have Tu B'Shvat, the birthday for the trees, as opposed to for the vegetables, or opposed to for the grains, because when you eat an apple, or you give me another fruit that has lots of seeds in it, pomegranate, right? Or any other, or a pear, or any fruit, you don't know the potential that's inside, right? You can replant the seeds that are in a fruit, right? As opposed to a cucumber or a tomato or a, barley, right? What you see is what you get. It's about potential actualizing the day. Okay, fine. After Shavat comes? Adar. There you go, Adar. Okay. What do we know about Adar? Purim. Are we familiar with this crazy holiday? Yeah? Yeah, whenever it's like Purim, every year when it's Perm, especially since really when I came to Israel, I'm like, anyone who's secular or non-Jewish must think we're crazy, right? In Jerusalem, the entire city gets drunk, okay? So we're going to speak about Perm. Let's first speak about the sign of the month is a fish, right? It represents fruitfulness and multiplying. The Jewish nation survived during this time. It also, fish represents tzniut, right? Being covered up there in the water. You don't see them. Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, the leader who took us out of Egypt. His birthday is the 7th of Adar. His birthday is in Adar, and he was known as the humblest, right, of all men. And let's speak about the customs of the day. What are the customs? What do we do on Perm?
You give people
Yeah, mishloach mano. I'll write it on the board. Right, mishloach comes from the word shalach, to send. So you are doing mishloach manot.
People that you like and don't like.
Specifically people that you don't like. Mishloach mano. There are 4 laws this day, right? One is mishloach mano, which means giving a package of food. It is 2 brachas, 2 blessings to one person, right? But we end up giving 30 different blessings to 50 different people, right? Mishloach mano. What's another law of the day?
Can you translate that?
Yeah, mishloach mano means like packages of sending packages, which it ends up being like a little, gift of food or wine and, chocolate bars.
Who do you send the packages to?
So ideally, you're supposed to send them to people who you actually don't have the best relationship with, right? But we end up saying to our friends, our family, our neighbors. People give to teachers. My address is 18 HaKablans, 3rd floor, apartment 7, right? People send to rabbis or teachers or their best friends, or it's their neighbors, right? You give to your building, right? People, it's basically, people use it as a time of appreciation. But really, the point of it is to bring us closer. So if you don't have the best relationship with your roommate because she always leaves her smelly socks on the floor, or just have a strained relationship with your best friend from when you were 5 years old, then it's probably a good time. Purim to give her a package of food. There are 4 laws. The second one is listening to the Megillah, right? Megillah is translated as a tractate or something like that. We know what a Megillah is? Yeah? A Megillah is, it's a story. That's what it is. It's a story, but the actual translation for it, I forget. But we read the Megillah, which is, we read the story of Esther, which is what we're speaking about today. The third mitzvah is having a meal called a seudah. And the fourth one is money to the poor. Money to the poor. Sorry for the bad handwriting, okay? Okay. So these are the 4 mitzvot of the day. And I'm just giving the basics, then we'll go into it, okay? The setup of Purim is that you have a fast day on the 13th of Adar. This usually falls out around March time, right? You have a fast day called Ta'anit Esther, one of the 6 fast days, the fast of Esther, on the 13th of Adar. The 14th of Adar is the holiday of Purim, where you do these 4 mitzvot, right? But like everything in Judaism, which is more complicated, right? In Jerusalem, we keep the 15th. Why do we keep the 15th? For us, Purim is the 15th of Adar. For everyone else, it is the 14th. So people in Jerusalem, really people in Israel usually celebrate like 2 days. Because if you're in Jerusalem, you go outside Jerusalem for the 14th and come back here for the 15th, right? So people usually often celebrate 2 days. The reason for that is because the 13th they fasted because they were going to be destroyed. We were about to speak about it, right? And the 14th, the 12th they fasted, the 13th they fought, and the 14th they rested. That's why they have Perm then, right? And the 15th day, the Jews in Shushan, the Jews within Persia itself, asked King Ahasuerus, the king, if they can have 1 extra day to fight, and that's why we have it in Jerusalem on the 15th, because that's when the Jews within the walled cities actually stopped and rested. Was that clear? Okay. Another custom of the day is wearing costumes. We dress up. It's not a Jewish Halloween, not at all, but we dress up on Purim. Any idea why? Like, why are we putting costumes on and getting drunk? Yes?
It has to do with the story of Esther and how God wasn't mentioned once, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an element of like being hidden in a way.
Yes, thank you. So costumes are just like God was hidden. His name's not mentioned anywhere in the Megillah. So too we hide ourselves, right? Costumes, putting on a mask, is throughout the year. We often have many masks that we wear. The mask of superficiality, the mask of materialism, the mask of self-containment, I don't need anything, right? The mask of busyness, I'm too busy, I'm too distracted, I don't have time for anything, right? Comes Purim, we're saying, I am taking off that facade, I am taking off that mask, that is not who I really am, and I'm putting on a real mask, right? This mask is to cover me up, right? The mask, the facade that I put on all year, that's not really me. It's much easier to hide behind a mask than it is to actually be your true self. Why?
It takes away responsibility.
Shirk's responsibility, right? It's not me. I didn't do this.
Maybe they didn't really grow up learning how to be true to themselves.
Right? They didn't grow up authentic, right? So they're just used to covering things up, right? But on Purim, God is telling us, you have the mask of self-containment. I don't need anyone. I'm self-sufficient. I live by myself. I'm independent. Hashem is saying, send shalach manas. Send mishloach manot to your friends, to your neighbors, to your colleagues. You do need people, right? We're saying, the mask of busyness. I'm too busy. I'm too distracted. I don't have time for them. I'm sorry. I can't talk right now. God's saying, sit down, right? Have a meal. Have a seudah with your friends, with your family. The mask of no emunah. Right? We wear a mask of God, you're not in this picture at all. I don't see you. This world is a dark place. I'm putting on a mask between me and you because I feel like you're wearing a mask. Comes Perm, one of the 4 mitzvot of the day is to read the Megillah, right? Which we're going to speak about, right? The Megillah is the whole story of God being covered up, but really he's there the entire time. Okay. What is the basic story of Perm? There is this king named Achashverosh. He is the king over 127 lands, and he throws a 180-day party for all of the people in his land, right? And then he throws a smaller party for the people just in Persia, in his own little hometown, right? At that party, they're getting a little carried away, they're getting a little drunk. P.S. The Jews went to this party, and he says, I know, let's bring my wife Vashti to come to the party. Right? So it says the Gemara, he asked her to come undressed, and she said, I'm not coming undressed. But as my 3-year-old daughter's Purim book says, he asked Queen Vashti to come with her crown. No, I have pimples, she said with a frown, right? He says that she said, I'm not coming to your party. I have pimples, or I have a tail, right? And she refused to come. Achashverosh said, a woman defies me. What do I do with her? Says his advisors, kill her. That's a great idea. So he kills Vashti. And then the next day he woke up and he said, lonely, I am so lonely, I have nobody. And so he went for the first beauty pageant, right? Beauty pageant. And Queen Esther actually didn't want to go, right? She said, I'm not going. Like, a Jewish woman doesn't just go and flaunt her stuff, right? I don't need to go. But every single woman was obligated to go. And she went. She did not get dressed up. She did not put on makeup. She just went herself. Obviously, the divine plan was Achashverosh would choose her. And he chose her to be his wife, which was just horrible, right? And she was married to him. Along the way, there's this man named Haman. He was the governor, the assistant to King Achashverosh, and he would walk down the streets and everyone would bow to him. Came this Jew with a beard and said, Jews don't bow to anyone other than God. And he says, you must bow to me. And every day he would walk by, and every day Mordechai wouldn't bow. He got so upset. This is called, by the way, the Haman syndrome, right? You can have the entire world bowing to you. One guy doesn't bow and you're not happy, right? Like, it destroyed him, right? So the entire world bowed except for one guy. He was upset. He went to Achashverosh and said, king, hi king, dear king, there's this nation, they're kind of like really, we don't really need them so much. Do you mind just signing this little waiver that we can kill them all? And he says, sure, no problem, and he signed it, okay? Along the way, the king is sleeping one night, and let me rephrase it. The king is trying to be sleeping, and he is not, and he hears some noise in his courtyard. He said, who is there? And Haman was there. And he said, Haman, what are you doing here? He said, I'm just walking. The king said, well, I was just flipping through, because I'm trying to fall asleep, so I was reading myself a story, and I'm flipping through my book of remembrances, where he writes down all these little things that happened to him. And in it, there was a story of Mordechai, right, who was the leading Torah sage at the time. He actually saved Achashverosh's life one time. 2 of the officers were plotting to kill Achashverosh. Mordechai heard this, and he saved Achashverosh's life. And as Achashverosh is reading this book, he says, we never rewarded him. Oh my God, what did we do? Right? What are we supposed to do? And it rewarded him. So he says, Haman, hypothetically speaking, if there was someone who's a really great guy who the king loves and admires, how would you reward him for doing a great deed? And Haman's like, well, what you do for me, for whoever this person is I would probably give him the king's clothes, right? And then I would put him on the king's horse and ride around saying, this is how great Haman is, this person is, right, to the king. So Achashverosh says, great. Do that to Mordechai the Jew. Mordechai the Jew, but the king said he had to do it. And Mordechai's put on this horse with the king's clothing, and Haman is dragging him through the streets saying, look how great, right, Mordechai is. After this happened, you can imagine how much more furious he was. And his wife, because, the wife is one who gives great advice, and the wife says, why don't you build gallows and to hang Mordechai on? Hang Mordechai and hang the Jews on these gallows, right? And he says that's a great idea, and they built these gallows. Let me just finish the story, then I'll get to you. Back to the story, the king signed this waiver. The Jews everyone in the world was allowed to attack the Jews on this day, the 13th of Adar. It was going to be a massacre, right? A genocide. And Mordechai goes to Queen Esther and he says, this is why God put you here. You are married to this king. Who wants to be married to this king, right? So you need to save a Jewish nation. And she says, okay. And in the meantime, Mordechai and everyone goes out and they fast for 3 days. Queen Esther goes to the king. Even though she was not summoned, she risked her life. And she said, whatever you want, my dear princess, up to half of the kingdom I will give to you. Right? She says, I just want you and Haman to come to a nice feast that I'm preparing for you. He goes, sure. Haman was all excited. Him, the king, and his wife, a dinner. She prepares a feast. And he goes, my wife, what is it that you want? She says, I just want one more meal with you. Okay, so the three of them come again, the next meal. And he says, my wife, what is it that you want? 2 meals. And she said, there's someone that's trying to destroy me and my people. Who's trying to kill my wonderful wife? Him. And she points to Haman. And the king is furious. He gets up and he goes for a walk in his courtyard. As destiny will have it, Haman is pleading to Esther, please don't kill me. Don't tell him that it wasn't my fault. I didn't realize you were Jewish. I wouldn't have done that if I knew you were Jewish. Right? And he falls onto her lap. And then right then, Achashverosh walks in. He says, it's not enough you're trying to kill her. You are trying to sleep with my wife in my own palace. And he says, I'm going to kill you. And as destiny will have it once again, he was hung on the gallows that he made for Mordechai. And the Jews celebrated, well, him and his 10 sons. Thank you. Yeah, him and his 10 sons were all hung. What's interesting about the entire Megillah is that God's name is not mentioned one time in the whole story. Hashem's name isn't mentioned. Right? It's a true story. He's nowhere to be found.
But isn't, like they say HaMelech, so it could refer to either Achashverosh?
Yes, thank you, right? Whenever it says Melech, it's referring to Achashverosh. And if you read the story, when it says HaMelech, the king, is referencing God. That's what we're getting to.
Where is the story?
Where is it? It's in Kesuvim, in the writings. Right, we have Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Kesuvim. So in the Kesuvim, in the writings, is Tehillim, is Psalms, is the Megillah Rus, is Megillah Esther. Okay, so God's name is not mentioned one time. Where is he? Unlike Passover, which is the month right after Perm, where God is everywhere. The 10 plagues, the splitting of the sea, the man from heaven, the water from a rock, right? Perm, nowhere. Darkness. It seemed totally like nature, but we all know there's nothing natural about nature. It seemed to be just, what are we going to do? We're left alone. Right? In the darkness is where they found God. It is likened to a woman who she receives a wonderful, beautiful bouquet of roses on a Wednesday afternoon. What would you do? You're a married woman. You received a wonderful bouquet of roses on a Wednesday afternoon. Who do you call? Your husband. We hope so, right? Unless you have many other by-the-ways on the side, right? So what do you do if you have many by-the-ways others on the side? You throw those in the trash, right? Right? If you call your husband and say, sweetheart, thank you so much for the roses. What roses? What are you talking about? Right? What are you talking about? What God did on Perm was he sent us a bouquet of roses with no name on it. You guys are going to be killed. You're left to yourself. I don't know. I'm not in the picture. My name's not mentioned in the Megillah. Right? And what did the Jewish nation do? They went out and they cried and they said, Hashem, but I know it's all from you. How did they get to that point? There's something called an emotional bank account, who whether or not we are aware of it, we have it with every relationship in our life, right? So for example, a husband and a wife, they have this emotional bank account. I love you, you're so sweet, thank you for washing the dishes. Okay, I just deposited $5 into his bank account, right? And then the next day I made him lunches and I took care of him, another $10 in his bank account, right? His bank account is pretty full. And then we go through a rough patch, right? There's some withdrawal that needs to be taken, right? I need to take out money from the bank. I need to tell you something that's hard for me, that will be hard for you too. But there's money in the bank account, right? So I can give, there's money to take out. What happens when you are in the deficit to begin with? There's no money in the emotional bank account. Well, then when you're withdrawing on nothing. The Jewish nation had the emotional, spiritual bank account with God. Are we all together? They had this bank account with God. And therefore, when God's name isn't mentioned anywhere, and I don't know what's going on, and we're going to be killed. Who'd they go to? To God. Because he's backed them up many times before. It's no different now. We received a bouquet of roses. We didn't know who they were from. We went straight to God because we didn't have those boyfriends on the side. There is a true story. This guy named Eddie Jacobs, who was from the Lower East Side in New York. And as a child, his parents moved him to Kansas City, right? Like, way to go parents, right? They moved him to Kansas City. And he met this boy there his age whose name was Harry, and they became good friends. And they grew up together, and they even did military service together. And while they were in the military, they even went on to, they said, when we finish the military, they fought in World War I together. When we finish the military, we are going to open up a business together. They opened up a business, when the war was over, they opened up a clothing line. The business failed. Eddie Jacobs went on to be a traveling salesman. And Harry took a different turn, and he became Harry S. Truman, the President of the United States. Fast forward 1947, 1948. The Jewish nation needed backing from the other countries, right, to help them proclaim Israel as a state, right? We're our official state, 1948. That's our birthday, right? And no matter what, nothing was doing. Chaim Weizmann, who was the president of Israel, right, wanted to meet with the president of the United States, Harry Truman, and nothing doing. All his officials did everything they can to block Jews from meeting the president. They didn't want Israel to be a state. And they remember there was this guy named Eddie who happened to be friends with the president when he was a child. They reached out to Eddie. They said, "Can you speak to the president?" He called the president, and the president said, "Oh, my buddy, well, are you sure you can come over?" And the official said, "Why? You're a busy man." He goes, "My friend from childhood, Eddie, Eddie, the one from the clothing, from the military, from high school, Eddie, I got to meet him." He shows up at the office, and he says, "Eddie, before we can talk about anything, just don't speak to me about Israel." He says, "Okay." And as he's walking into his office, Eddie starts crying. And he says, "What's wrong? Did something happen?" And he points to the statue and he says, "Who is this man?" He says, "Oh, this man, the statue. This is my mentor. This is my role model." I forget the name, was one of the previous presidents. He says, "He's my everything." Why? Why do you ask? He said, "Well, I have someone who's my everything also. His name is Chaim Weizmann. And what this statue means to you is what he means to me. Can you please just meet with him?" And he says, "I'll meet with him." And they met, and America was the first country to pronounce Israel as a state, right? And Chaim Weizmann met with him, and he became the president of America, right? And they pronounced Israel as a state when Ben-Gurion, right? Ben-Gurion? When he was working towards this, right? In the Megillah, every single thing can look like total chaos or total perfectly constructed story, a beautiful narrative by God. Why? Every single thing in every single person in the right place at the right time. But God's name is not mentioned. Why? Because what's your emotional bank account like with God? Megillat Esther means, I guess you can translate Megillah as scroll. I just realized that, maybe scroll. Megillat Esther means, Megillah comes from the word legalot, giloi, right? To reveal. Megillah, right? Gilui arayis means revealing arayis, like hidden parts, right? Megillat Esther, Esther comes from the word haster, aster panim, hiding. I don't see. Megillat Esther is the Megillah of what? Of revealing the hidden. But it's only revealing the hidden if you want to see it. That's what Megillat Esther is. Okay. Which is why Pesach, which is the complete opposite of Perm in terms of the actual narrative, comes right after Purim. Pesach comes right after Perm. Why? Why? You have sometimes couples who are all over each other in public, right? But in private, they're actually fighting like cats and dogs, right? Or it can be they're all over each other in public and also in private. That's great. You hope that's the case, right? Nigla, revealed, isn't always a solid relationship. Nistar, hidden, is, right? A couple who is secure and confident in each other, they don't need to show to the world, right? Like, look how great and amazing we are, look how much we love each other. The same way someone who's rich, who's actually rich, doesn't need to prove to the whole world, look how much money I have, right? When it's solid, you're confident, you don't need to prove to everyone else. When we have a relationship that is hidden and goes through the hard times, and when you have that heavy discussion with your husband or your boyfriend, and you trek through the mud during the challenging times, you will be zocha, you will merit to have the fireworks, the sparks, that relationship, right? Pesach came right after Perm. If you attach yourself to God during the hard times, during the darkness, right, then you will see God in the lightness. You will see God in the clarity. Any questions so far? Yeah.
So why does Pesach come after Perm?
Why does Pesach come after Perm? I mean, chronologically, that's when the story happened, right? But because Purim was, God tested us during the dark times, right? Things weren't making sense, but who did we go to right away? God, Emunah. Like, we know it's from you, right? And when in a relationship, you cling to each other, you have that connection and dedication, you will be zoche, right? To have that revealed rainbows and butterflies and fireworks, right? The Passover, Pesach, is all fireworks and rainbows and butterflies and the sky is shining bright and the birds are singing, right? That's what Pesach is, right? That God took us out in miracles in front of everyone, the entire world. The sea split. Food was coming from heaven. We drank water from a rock. Of course it's God. Is there any other option, right? We saw the 10 plagues in Egypt. That's clear. You have to be crazy to say it's not God. Comes Perm, right? He's not anywhere, right? But it's when you see him in the darkness that you see him in the light. Is that clear? Okay. Pain is an impetus for growth, right? We know that. Haman's pain pushed us straight into Hashem's hands. Pain is what pushes the baby out, right? Without the pain, you don't get the baby. But why do we get drunk on Purim? Let's deal with that. Why are we getting wasted on Purim?
So to unveil your inhibitions and maybe reveal true self.
Yes. Bring out who your essence is, who you really are, right? It says you're mechaven, right? You understood what the Talmud tells us, which is nichnas yayin yotze sod, which means wine goes in, secrets come out, right? You let go of your inhibitions of I'm not good enough, I'm too scared, I'm fearful, right? And you can just be you, yeah? Oh no, sorry.
There's some idea how you're not supposed to know the difference between good and bad on that day or something like
Yeah,
that.
you're close to it. Thank you. That's what we're going to speak about next, yeah?
Like the between lying or
Thank you, right? Says the Talmud, this wild thing. You drink, mind you, if you're someone who gets drunk and you're sitting on every guy's lap and doing all sorts of stupid things and yelling and screaming, drinking's not for you. That's not what it means. It's for when, the inner essence and the goodness comes out. The Talmud says this wild thing. A person must drink on Purim until he doesn't know the difference between Arur Haman and Baruch Mordechai, which means you should drink until you don't know if you are saying cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai, right? Haman was the bad guy, Mordechai was the good guy, right? So Gemara is saying drink until you're so drunk that you're wait, is Haman the good one and Mordechai is the bad one, right? And Mordechai is the cursed one, right? What is it talking about? That's like saying, God forbid, blessed is Hitler, may his name be erased, and cursed is some other great rabbi who you know, or Rebbetzin. What are you talking about? Any ideas? Why are we drinking till we get to that point? Mm-hmm.
To celebrate the fact that we exist and that to forget the fact that we almost died, so that we can fully appreciate the fact that we exist.
That's a nice idea, right? It's you're so drunk, I don't remember that trauma, like that. Yeah. That's a nice idea. Could be. Another idea is we're in the physical world, right? We see things very finite. God is infinite. I don't see right now how it's good that I'm having money troubles or my boyfriend dumped me or I didn't get that job or I got rejected from that university. I don't see how that is good. Don't try and tell me that it's good, right? However, Haman's pain, Haman's persecution, us almost dying, that pushed us straight into Kadosh Baruch Hu's hands, right? We went straight to Hashem. It strengthened our relationship. But I can't see how that's good. What does the Gemara say? Get to a point on Perm where you are elevated above the physical realm, right? Above the physical world, right? I'm not so grounded, so to speak, where I can see, right, that there was a little bit of blessed is Haman and cursed is Mordechai. What does that even mean? Haman brought us closer to Hashem, and very quickly we're running out of time, but I'm not going to go there. It's too much, and I want to go to the next thing. But why are we getting drunk until we don't know the difference between the two? So we can lift ourselves out of our physical body, and only then can we see, oh, now I understand why that hardship was good, right? But when I'm in the physical world, when I'm so grounded, I don't see that it's good. But when you're drunk, when I'm lifted above, right, meta, then I can see more clearly. We're all together? Okay. Which is why Adar, the month of Perm, is the same letters, right, in Hebrew. Adar is the same letters as Ani, I, Daled can be used for God. Ani Hashem Rofecha, I am God, your healer, right? But God is usually used for a Hey or a Yud. Dalet can also be used, but it's not usually. Exactly. Adar is Ani Hashem Rofecha. Even when you don't realize that the Dalet, that whatever it is that's happening in your life is Hashem, is God. Adar is the same letters as Aleph, Dar. God, what does Dar mean? What does Dira mean? Dira, you live in Diras? Apartment, thank you. Right? Dira is an apartment. Dar means live. Dar means dwells, right? Aleph Dar, right? God dwells. God is with us, even when I don't see him because his name's not there anywhere. Even when it's so dark and things aren't making sense, right? Aleph Dalet is always Dalem, which means the poor person, right? In Tehillim it says God is with the Dalem. God is with the poor. Adar is God is with us. Let's finish with this last point, which is, there's actually a few more things I want to speak about, right? Yom Kippur is Yom Kippur, like Perm, that's what Yom Kippur is. Maybe next class we'll speak about the similarities and the differences. But we'll end with this. It says, Misha nichnas Adar, marbim b'simcha. No song, Misha nichnas Adar, no? Oh, yeah? Okay, some of you. So which means whoever enters, that's like the Perm song, right? Misha nichnas, like a knisa is an entrance, right? Misha nichnas Adar, whoever enters Adar, marbim b'simcha, should increase in happiness. How can you command me to be happy? In Av, which is approaching soon, which is the month of both temples being destroyed and many other tragedies, right? It says, Misha nichnas Av, whoever enters Av, mimata b'simcha, lowers their happiness. But it tells us how. In Av, it says you can't drink wine, right? During the 9 days, you don't drink wine. You don't eat meat, right? On Tisha B'Av, you don't have marital relationships, right? During the month of Av, during those 9 days, right? You don't do a lot. You don't have weddings or simchas, right? What does it say about Perm to get drunk? God, Misha nichnas Adar marbim b'simcha. Whoever enters Adar, you should increase in happiness. How? To get drunk? So I was right the whole time. I don't need these AA meetings, right? Wine and alcohol brings us to happiness. You're not telling me how to increase happiness. How can you tell me Misha nichnas Adar marbim b'simcha? What is the Talmud really telling us? Misha nichnas Adar. Whoever enters Adar, knowing the secret of Adar, marbim b'simcha, you'll increase in happiness. You don't need to tell me how to increase in happiness if you understand the secret of Adar. What's the secret of Adar, like we just said? God is here. Aleph Dar. God is here. God's right with us. Aleph Dira. God has a Dira. God has an apartment. God is dwelling right here. And when someone lives their life with knowing what Adar is, with knowing the secret of Perm, with knowing that even though he doesn't seem like he's anywhere and I'm all alone in this crazy, big, wide world, right? And life feels like a movie, but I know there's something bigger going on here. I'm not sure what, but I know there's something bigger going on here. You will automatically marbim bisimcha, right? What leads people over the edge? They're alone. I have no one. No one will notice if I don't show up to school tomorrow. What's the point of my existence, right? Misha nichnas Adar marbim bisimcha. Whoever enters Adar knowing the secret of Adar, they will naturally increase in happiness. Any questions on this? No? Have a wonderful day, ladies.